Hello, everybody, and welcome to Lattes on My Mind.
I'm Hannah.
And I'm Felina. Hannah, what are we going to be talking about?
Today we're going to be talking about Atlantis, the sunken city. So grab your lattes and join us for the journey. Felina.
Hannah.
Hello. It's like I haven't seen you in
Hello.
forever. So, what?
My aunt's dog is pregnant, and I was third on the list to get a puppy. And they took it, they did the little x-ray, and there are 3 skulls. So there's 3 puppies.
There are 3 skulls.
So we're getting a puppy.
So, I think what week was it? The Doomsday week, we talked about me getting a second dog, and now you're very likely getting a second dog.
Very likely.
Very likely. We still have our second dog, by the way.
Yes, you did. She's sweet.
She's a needy little thing. We did.
She's a Velcro dog.
She is. Mm-hmm. Are you going to tell them what kind of dog you're getting?
She's going to be a Shih Tzu Pomeranian.
Going to be just the right size for Darcy.
Just the right size. I think I mentioned this before, but in case you're newer here, I have a dachshund mix. Her name is Darcy, and she is sassy.
And her little legs are the funniest thing ever when she runs.
She
and, yeah, it's so
she got some speed though.
She does.
Yeah,
she's
also
jump.
Got the hops. Yeah.
Yeah. She could jump way higher than my German Shepherd.
Yeah.
Literally.
She's like, I will get up there.
For her body size, I'm sure she jumps way more than higher than my German Shepherd.
One time, I think we found her on our kitchen counter. And we were like,
cat.
How did you what? And she was just licking stuff out of the KitchenAid bowl. We were like, what is happening?
Out of the kitchen the KitchenAid bowl just
yeah, she knocked it over, and then we heard a doo-doo-doo-doo, and we were like, what was that? And then we went in, and she was just licking it up.
That's so funny.
On the kitchen counter, and we were like, huh?
What a little what would you
Brat?
call her? Brat. Rascal. I was trying to think of a word.
She's spoiled.
She's spoiled.
What she is.
She's smart.
You can actually maybe hear her barking out there right now.
Maybe.
I just heard some
distant.
barks.
So, all right, Felina, what do you think of when you think of Atlantis? What is your first impression?
I think of the cartoon with the guy with the glasses and stuff.
Yeah, the Disney.
That's what I think of.
It's been a long time. Well, actually, I don't think I watched it fully when I was younger, and then I went back and watched it. It's actually a pretty good movie.
Yeah, it's very underrated.
Yeah, it's one of the underrated. I feel like it falls in the category of have you seen Treasure Planet?
Yes.
I love Treasure Planet. I feel like it's in that vein of Treasure Planet, Atlantis. Brother Bear is kind of an underrated one too, isn't it? I feel like people.
I feel like more people
that was later.
Are it's I feel like it's more popular than the other ones.
Yeah.
Were.
There was another one I was thinking of. It's it's in that sort of moment when Disney was experimenting things, I think.
Yeah.
I feel like.
But it was fun.
It was good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that Disney movie comes to my mind. And we read this book when we were younger. It was called The 7 Sleeper series. And it was I don't want to say it's an apocalyptic story, but it's about these kids that get 7 of them that get put to sleep, and then they get woken up and the world's ending, and it's allegorical. It's a Christian series. It's really
okay.
It's so I think it's by Moody Press or something. It's way back there. It's bizarre. No one has ever heard of this.
Uh-huh.
But it's called The 7 Sleepers. And the second book, they go to all these different places. And one of them, second book, third book, it's Atlantis. And it's they ride on dolphins.
And I want to ride on a dolphin.
I know. And they have these helmets. And they describes it as they have these clear helmets, and they have these clear suits, and they have little tubes that run through it that pump the air into it, so you have a kind of a bubbly suit almost.
Is it almost like a spacesuit?
Kind of.
But for underwater?
But for underwater, it's clear. And so that's in my mind, and you see the city behind them, and it's a green, so it's people living in an underwater city. That's kind of what I think of when I think of Atlantis. You know what I mean? That's usually in pop culture, it seems that's how people have taken it. People live in this underwater city. But a lot of the stuff I looked up was like nothing to do with that, obviously. Like people don't believe there's a underwater city that people
There's
are
no
living
mermaids
Yeah.
in Atlantis.
Yes. Which I was thinking of. In The Little Mermaid, do they live in Atlantis? Or is that something else?
I have no idea.
Okay. He said, I have
Could
no
not
idea.
tell you.
Could not tell you one bit. Because for some reason it's King Triton, but I can't remember if it's Atlantis or not, or they just live in...
I think they're just mer people.
Mer people, yeah. So that's what I think of originally when I think of Atlantis, as like an underwater city that's still like alive. But that's not at all, obviously, what we're talking about entirely. Atlantis has had lots of cultural influence in lots of people's writings and films and stuff. So of course Disney, I thought of that one obviously because it's specifically about them like finding Atlantis.
Right. Yeah.
And then apparently it influenced peoples in the Renaissance as well. Francis Bacon and Thomas More were writers in the Renaissance, influenced their writings. And H.P. Lovecraft, I don't know if you've heard of the author H.P. Lovecraft, but
Lovecraft sounds familiar. Yeah.
Their works were influenced by Atlantis. And my favorite, J.R.R. Tolkien, apparently based the city of Numenor, which is like the ancestors of Aragorn and stuff, the people of Numenor. The destruction of that city in the Silmarillion, Tolkien's Silmarillion, apparently is like based off of Atlantis. Like it gets destroyed by this like huge flood, tsunami.
Okay.
So lots of influence in popular culture. Also, apparently a Netflix special called Ancient Apocalypse came out a few years ago. I don't remember when. Have you heard of this?
We should watch it.
Well, it's very controversial apparently, but it's by this guy named Graham Hancock, and apparently it's widely controversial. A lot of scientists, a lot of archaeologists were like, this is absolute like BS, baloney. But he believed that the Atlanteans were the originators of technology and science to all other civilizations. So like the Atlantis myth, he thinks these were real people that spread like the knowledge to all other civilizations. So like they're the founders of like, here is architecture, technology, science, and like spread it to all of us. Okay, that's like the premise.
Okay.
So it's very hypothetical, I think. So
yeah,
a lot of people are like, this is like ridiculous. I haven't watched it, obviously. It's like I think it's like an 8-part series. So I have not watched it.
Found my new binge.
Yeah. And it's also very like, I think because it's not scientific, it's very like based on just what his hypothesis or whatever.
So it's like a fun, it's not necessarily like this is what happened because of all of this evidence and here. Right. It's like this is what could have happened because of this.
Apparently some people said it was dangerous, like the series, because it says like, it like questions apparently everything we know about history. So it's very like controversial. But then I read this other guy that was like, it's just like a fun thing that he's...
I was about to say, it like, sounds like it's just like a fun little series of like, this is what could have happened. Right. This is what I think could have happened.
Yeah.
So
if you've watched this and you know more information about it, then correct us. But I'm just basing this off of what I've heard about it. I don't know a lot about it. But sounds interesting. Maybe we should check it out. But Atlantis starts with Plato. Do you know who Plato is?
Is it like Playo?
I was gonna say she's gonna say something about Play-Doh, and I was gonna be like, not the dough, not the kids Play-Doh.
I'm not that stupid. Come on now.
I'm just kidding.
Sorry, I had to take a coffee break there, but like Plato and Aristotle.
Yes. And you said I'm not that stupid. I don't think you're stupid.
Listen, we went to the same college, okay? Even if I didn't learn it in my public school system.
I don't think you're stupid. I just know how you get with history, and you're like, who? What? It makes me laugh.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to do the name thing. Yeah, I thought you were going to do the name thing. Okay.
No, I know Plato. He's a philosopher.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, yes, he was born in 428 or 427 BC. Now, remember, we have to think of, before Christ. So the years go down before Christ. So that's what I kept getting confused about when I was reading the history. Yeah. Because all this happens in BC. So we're counting down to Christ. So he was born in 428 or 427 BC. Apparently they contradict. He was a Greek philosopher. You're very right. You're very smart.
Thank you.
And he was kind of the guy that gave birth to Western philosophy. So like kind of like the Western culture sort of thing. Socrates taught him, just like you said. And then Plato went on to teach Aristotle. So all of them, all the guys that we know about, all those philosophers, they're all like kind of
mentored.
Yeah, mentored one another.
Yeah.
Okay, so Plato started the myth of Atlantis. Okay.
Oh, she said the myth. I
Well,
caught that. I caught
Okay.
that.
We're going to talk about the myth first because it all stems from a myth. However, they do believe, every myth has some root in history. So I'm going to talk about the myth, and then I'm going to talk about the history that we think is like the most probable explanation
Okay.
for this.
Okay.
So we know about Atlantis because he wrote about it in his 2 works called, which I'm going to say wrong as always, Timaeus and Critias. He penned them sometime around 360 BC, and they're they're pretty much morality tales is what people call them. So it's about the city of Atlantis that was thought to be this like perfect society. Okay. It was utopian. They were super advanced in technology. They had like amazing architecture, all this stuff. And it's thought that they were descendants of Poseidon. So they were like demigods.
Oh.
Yeah. So
that's how they had all like this knowledge and technology.
Right. Because
and all
they were
that.
like descended from the gods.
Mm-hmm.
But essentially, they think that Plato.
Sorry,
No, you're
sorry
good.
not to interrupt, but like just those 2 people. Or wait, am I already confused?
So
Teabag and Ludacris.
okay, so these guys, I didn't really have a lot about them. It's pretty much like they were fictional characters that Aristotle was like talking to in his discourse about this place. So they were these guys who like told the story, but they're not like, I don't think they were real people. It's just called, the writings are called this, like named after them, but they're like part of the myth, if that makes sense.
Okay.
It's like Aristotle, Plato wrote this discussion between these few people, and it was like not actually a real discussion, if that makes sense. I don't know. They did it a lot of times to like a hypothetical conversation that happened, essentially.
Okay.
Sorry, I know that was confusing.
So it was all of Atlantis was
Right.
demigods, basically.
Yes.
Okay.
But they were descended from Poseidon, the king of the, or the god
sea.
of the sea. We're already getting confused, everyone. I told you there's so much information. But there were really detailed, like he was very detailed about the descriptions of the island. So that's why people were like, he would like tell about like, the plants there and the buildings and the rocks that they used to build the city. So they were kind of like, this is like very description heavy,
Yeah.
to be just.
Which is why it's like, it must be true because
Right.
it's so descriptive.
Or based off of something.
Yeah.
But essentially, the Atlanteans became, because they were so advanced and so technologically savvy, I guess. I don't know how you want to say it, but they became prideful, obviously, as all humans do. They're like, we're the best. We're the best of the best. So apparently in the story, the Athenians, which Plato is from Athens, so he puts them into the story and says, we had this war between us two, and essentially the Atlanteans, is that how you say it? Were destroyed because the gods were like, we actually don't favor you anymore. So they let Athens win. And then the gods destroyed Atlantis because of their pride. So they destroyed them.
Oh,
wiped them
like
out.
they were getting too cocky.
Yeah.
So they were like,
so they made an example of
you're
the gods.
done.
Yeah, you're done. The gods were like, who do you think you are? Just like us. So
you're only half of us. You can't be just like us.
You can't be just like the gods.
You discriminated against the demigods, man.
Right. So this prideful war made the gods angry, and they destroyed them with a natural disaster of an earthquake and a flood. An earthquake and a flood. Okay. Those
Sounds
are important.
familiar, flood-wise.
It does. It does. So Plato stated that Atlantis was wiped out in one day and one night. That's
a pretty big
That's
flood.
fast.
Yeah.
That's fast for like this huge city.
Yeah.
Which also I think he described it as being as big as, I was confused by this because he said it was the size of Libya and Asia. And I was like, Asia? And I think they must have called, because I read somewhere else where they mentioned Turkey. So I was like, maybe Asia in that sense was not as big as like we're thinking of Asia. Because that would be a big
it's like not
island.
as big as it is now.
Right.
Yeah.
So I was a little confused by that point. I'd had to go back and look at it again. Like, was it actually Asia or did he mean like just a part of Asia? But supposedly it was a pretty big island. It couldn't have been as big as Asia. That's like,
I mean,
that's a continent.
It could have been.
It could have been.
It could have been.
Where would it have gone?
And maybe that's why we can't find it, because we're looking for some small city and it's really just so massive and we're all over top of it.
Right. We just got a tsunami over something. Which
yeah.
I have some interesting historical theories for you
so,
there.
Hannah,
Yes.
let me get this straight. You're saying Atlantis most likely was not real.
Atlantis, as Plato wrote about, is most likely not real.
Okay.
Or like what people think about of Atlantis. However, there are cities that I will get to that were destroyed in similar manners to what Plato talks about that I think it could have been based off of.
Okay.
Because he also said that, like, supposedly Atlantis was like, this history was like 9,000 years before he lived. So it's a very, yeah. So we're talking about like, he's talking about thousands and thousands of years ago.
The story could have gotten
Right.
misconstrued here and there.
Right. Aside from Plato, there are really no other historical writings that mention the city. So it's often thought. Go ahead. What were you going to say?
Do you think that Plato made the whole thing up then? Like, well, obviously, but like,
Right.
Do you think it's just like, oh, I'm going to tell I'm writing a story and people saw it as like, oh, there was a real, like.
That's what most scholars think. And I think, I believe part of it, like, I think it could have been like a real place, but probably not to the extent that other people. I'm going to tell you about some crazy things that people think about Atlantis as well. I think it could have been a real place, but I think it was one of the islands that is like historically like this happened to them.
So not like he was just writing a fictional story,
right?
But like he was writing about it, but
yeah,
he was imagining it was
like this utopian society and stuff. Okay. I do think he was writing it as a story, but he like may have been like historical fiction almost, but like really fictionized. Yeah. Fictionized? I just made that word up.
Perfect. Coined it. Fictionized.
Most scholars think that he made it up. That it was just meant to teach the people of Athens, like, hey, if we become greedy and do this, then the gods are going to destroy us as well, like they did Atlantis. Like that's what.
Okay, gotcha.
That's what most people think is like this, like, I don't know, Pilgrim's Progress, if you will, like, you know, an allegory of.
Excuse me, sorry. I'm
keeping that in. But the reason why a lot of people took it so seriously, I think, is that Aristotle mentioned this man named Solon is his name. And he was a lawmaker and a politician that like was very well respected in Athens. Mm-hmm. And so he mentions him in the story that Solon went to Egypt and learned this story from the Egyptians who had it like, I was watching this one video that was like, they had like this city on their wall that is apparently like the description that Plato gives.
Okay.
So they told him about the civilization that had lived 9,000 years before them. Before the Egyptians. So because he added the story of Solon traveling to Egypt and hearing about Atlantis from the Egyptians, apparently they were like, well, we like Solon. Solon's a very well-respected lawmaker and politician, so this story must have some weight to it or whatever.
Right.
So that's kind of why they took it. I think the Athenians took it kind of seriously. But according to Plato, which this one didn't make sense to me because if we're looking at like the historical islands, this location doesn't like line up with them because he said the location of Atlantis, Plato did, was west of the Pillar of Hercules, which is what they called the Strait of Gibraltar, which is, do you know about the Strait of Gibraltar? It's in between. I have a little map for you. I know you hate them.
Oh boy.
But the Atlantic Ocean.
She literally included a map in her notes for me because I had to look it up last time.
I wanted to show you because I wanted to be like, so you can kind of imagine it. So this is the Atlantic Ocean over here. So Europe's above it, Africa's under it, and then we have the Mediterranean Sea, okay? And then so the little body of water that goes between these two continents is the Strait of Gibraltar, which Plato called the Pillars of Hercules. Yeah.
Why?
I guess because they kind of like two pieces of land that kind of like surround the water, so it looks like, I guess, like pillars when you're going through it.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
like I imagine.
Yeah, I
like,
can see that.
I can see it
like from
Rings,
the
like,
boat.
Yeah.
Perspective. I was like, why?
Yeah.
We're looking at it from an aerial.
Like, surrounding the water, like the two bodies of land. But he said it's west of that, so that means Atlantis to him would have been located in the Atlantic Ocean. But the
Atlantis, Atlantic. I can see the correlation. Yeah.
But all the historical evidence points to somewhere in the Mediterranean Sea, which is over here. So like that's like the opposite direction. But it's also close to Greece, like the places that we're going to be looking at.
Okay, so in reference to Pangea.
Yeah.
Would Pangea have been a thing?
Well, and that's...
Could it have shifted?
Right. Well, it would have happened still before this time, I think, because Pangea would have been like way back.
Okay. I have no idea when Pangea took place. So.
A lot of people, like, before we understood more about like plate tectonics and things of the shifting, I think people thought things moved a lot more like further than they actually do now.
Right.
So I think a lot of people had theories about like the islands moving and like, you know, stuff like that. He thought west of the Pillars of Hercules, and he described Atlantis as, so it's like a round city, so it's like a big circle, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And it has all these little pieces of land, and then all the water. There's like several circles of water that go in between these pieces of land. So it's like a circle of land, a circle of water, a circle of land, a circle of water. And then that's like, yeah, and then the castle of Atlantis is like in the middle. And then the whole thing is connected. I'll have to show you a picture. And the whole thing is connected.
Like a mountain?
Kind of, like going up.
Like I was thinking like in a line. And I was like, huh?
You're like, huh? And it was weird because it's like it has water in between, but I think it's because it's all connected to the ocean by like a canal. So they're all like connect like of water. So like there's a body of water that goes through it as well. It was really confusing. He was like, it's a concentric island with all these varying land, water. And I was like, huh? But it was also said like the city in the middle is like on a hill. So probably like what you're saying, like terraced up. Like, like that. Okay, but there's water in between all of it. That's probably where like a lot of like the water-based Atlantis comes from, because it was like so filled with water.
It probably wasn't that hard to flood then if it was already half water.
Yeah, if it was already like there was water in between all the pieces of land. I mean. Yeah. And then Plato apparently said that it was destroyed, that earthquakes had sunk the city and covered it in mud. And as I said before, in a day and a night. Yeah. It was destroyed. So let's get to the history that possibly inspired Atlantis. The thing about this is obviously it's not 9,000 years ago. Yeah. What we're looking at is about in 1500 BC. So we're talking about like 3,500 years ago, because obviously it's 2000 now. Well, 2024. Mm-hmm. And this was 1000 BC. So it's so confusing. It's like 1000 BC. So Christ.
3,500
years ago about.
So 3,524 years ago.
Our fathers set forth. No, just kidding. So the most credible, for me, explanation for Atlantis comes from two islands called Crete. I'm sure you've heard of Crete. Crete is an island in the Mediterranean Sea. So Greece, and then Crete. I didn't get you a map for this because you get stressed out when I show you a map.
I do get stressed out.
But anyway, in the Mediterranean Sea, Greece, and then there's going to be Crete. And then there's another island north of Crete, a little island called Santorini, which is really fun to say, I think.
Rotini.
I thought that too. It sounds like pasta.
It does.
But they're both in the Mediterranean Sea, and their destructions are linked. Okay.
What's a destruction?
What's a destruction?
Yeah.
Destruction? Their destruction.
Oh.
Like the destruction
of the destruction of the island.
I thought you were messing with me.
I thought you were spitting out some like technical term. I was like, what is a I thought you said they were linked, so I was like, is that like a path that you can take? I don't.
It did sound like that. I said it weirdly. When they were
destroyed is linked.
Yes, is linked.
Okay.
Okay, so on the island of Crete, there's this culture that they believed lived called the Minoans. That's a fun one too. The Minoans. The Minnows lived on Crete. So this is gonna get a little historically heavy. So bear with me.
I'm ready.
Okay. Oh, also a lot of this I got like several articles, as well as I watched this History Channel thing called Atlantis Rediscovered: Shocking Secrets of Crete, Lost Worlds. So if anyone wants to check that out, a lot of this historical evidence.
Check it out.
Yeah, it's pretty fun. It's a little like nerdy, history heavy. So if you don't like that, then if you like the more like fun, fantastical things, you might not like it as much.
If you're like me, don't go check it out. If you're like Hannah, watch it and tell your friend who's like me about it.
Right, exactly. So that's what we're gonna do. So I got a lot of this from different articles, but also from that video. Mm-hmm. So this guy called Arthur Evans went and explored this city called Knossos on the island of Crete. And he found there a throne made out of stone. So he begins excavating and stuff, okay? And he finds this throne, which then opens up to this huge palace complex. So he finds this huge palace made out of stone in the middle of this city of Knossos.
I'm sorry, and this is 1500 BC? 15,000 BC.
So the Minoan civilization, as they named it, lived 1500 BC. Arthur Evans was like, I didn't write it down, but he was like an archaeologist like in the 1800s or 1900s. Okay. So they're doing excavation.
So he found this then. Okay.
Right. So I think it was the 1900s. I'm not entirely sure. Don't, Don't yell at me for not knowing the date, everyone. But he went and he was researching like Greek mythology and wanted to find like, you know, the sort of roots of this. So he goes to this island in Crete and he uncovers part of this temple complex is what he calls it. And he calls it the Minoan civilization, which apparently lived, you know, 3,500 years ago. So 1,500. And lots of people think he got the name Minoan from, I don't know if you've ever heard of King Minos and the Minotaur, but it's like a Greek like legend that this king lived in. The Minotaur. The Minotaur you've heard of. He lived in this palace and he had like the beast in the middle of the palace in this chamber. So Arthur, this guy, named this civilization that we don't know what happened to the Minoan civilization. So
interesting. Yeah. So they were probably called something else.
Right. They probably were, but they were like a real, like, not society, but like a real city, real people that lived on this island, just probably not King Minos and the Minotaur, obviously, but that's what he named it after.
Okay.
So he finds it. It's like it's so technologically advanced for its time. It has a water system underneath the city, so they have like clay pipes,
like sewage.
Water brings in water, takes out wastewater. Okay, and this predates the Roman and Greek cultures by like 1,000 years in technology, because Greek and Roman civilizations later did have like water systems and sewage systems, but this is like 1,000 years before they would have had it. So it's like way advanced beyond its time. And that's what they were saying too. Like these two islands that it talked in history that they talk about were like way advanced beyond everyone else. Yeah. So who really lived on these islands? You know? So I mean, that is pretty crazy. Like to think of them having this kind of system, and it was like underneath the city in these pipes, and it would bring in fresh water, and then it would take out wastewater. And lots of times that seems so simple to us now,
but like that wasn't common practice,
right? Like taking away waste
3,500 years ago,
because they didn't know about all this disease and stuff. So it was crazy. And they also had, and Plato did mention the city having an excellent water supply. So that's why they were kind of like, Minoan culture, maybe?
Yeah.
And he also said that the palace, apparently the walls glittered with silver. Okay. And yeah, that's what Plato described the city as. Okay.
What?
Glittering with silver. And the stones that the temple, or not the temple, the palace was made out of was actually called gypsum, is what it's called, the stone. And it has like crystalline, is that how you say it? Crystalline pieces in it. So it like sparkles a little. Oh. So if you look at it, it has like these little like sparkly, so it would have like in that time sparkled like silver. Supposedly.
Okay. Supposedly. So it wasn't actual like silver. It was like the little crystals
in the stone.
Okay. I know exactly what you're talking. I've seen the like I've seen like you can the little rocks like that
shine.
Because I mean, we have them now too in my house now, but when I was growing up, we had like all these rocks that had like seashells and stuff in them, and like you could like see them sparkle, right? And it was like weird.
Yeah. So if they had used that stone, it could very well have been, like they said, granted, like it's obviously wore down now because of the weather, but at the time it would have been a lot more noticeable.
Like when you're first finding it. Yeah.
So anyway, and not only that, but they were just like really like interesting, intuitive things that they had. They had like these doors so it's called, I don't know, pier and door partitioning with shutters. So it's like they had these like window type things and inside the house with doors underneath them, and you could open and close like these shutters that went over the windows and the doors.
Kind of like the house that we were looking at.
Yeah, but like apparently it helps with like airflow, or you can block off winds and stuff. Oh. So they could like open the windows above the doors or just the doors, and like could control the airflow that went in and out of the palace.
That's cool. That's advanced.
Yeah, and they had like 4-story spiral staircases. Yeah, like, and they had a skylight so that like the light would come down at the top of these stairs. They had this big like skylight so that the light would come down into like all the rooms of the palace.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, so it was like very like the architecture was like very advanced. And then they also had, apparently they had, because okay, they're on an island, right? So they tried to build these walls that were apparently very sound, like against earthquakes. So it has like wooden frames through it, like in a cross shape almost, and then like stone around it, and then a wood beam at the top. So like it's very like withstands earthquakes. So it's like they kind of were like used to this kind of earthquakes happening. So very advanced, very smart people. However, not sturdy enough to withstand the devastation that was to come their way.
Oh,
Dun, dun,
no.
dun.
Dun, 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 dun.
So let me say this before I talk about the destruction. Apparently,
And apparently.
so the Mediterranean Ocean, where Crete is, and the other island called Santorini, it's split long ways through the ocean on two tectonic plates. Okay, so it's in an area that's very likely to have seismic activity. Like,
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because the two bodies of land kind of push it, and it causes all sorts of earthquakes, tsunamis, that sort of thing. So it's a very unstable location anyway. So the island of Santorini, which is about, I think, 100 miles north of Crete. So we got Crete down here. We got Santorini up here. Okay. It's an island, okay? And there's a circular island in the middle. Circular, mind. And like a little wraparound island around it, okay? It's a cute little island. You'll have to look it up. But apparently it has this giant thing in the middle called a caldera, which is essentially a big crater-like impression left from a volcano dying. And then it like fills up with water. So it's often thought that this island in the middle, this circular island,
was Atlantis. Okay, I can see that. Yeah.
The city that was built on top of it was completely destroyed. They think there was a city there that was completely destroyed.
Oh, okay.
It had an active volcano, and it erupted sometime in the periods of 1500 BC. Although some people say it was from 1611 to 1538. So the dates
don't really line up. Well, there's so much speculation around it.
Yeah, it's like we don't know. It was sometime in the 1500s. It could have been as early as some people said 1620. So it kind of just was like 1500s. They said so. This volcano, which is in the middle of Santorini, erupted, and it created a tsunami that went and hit our island of Crete. Okay.
Okay.
This crazy volcanic eruption, known as the Minoan eruption, because of referencing the Minoan civilization,
right,
had a volcanic explosivity index, is what it's called, or VEI, of 6 or 7. Okay?
Is that high?
It's like, I think 8 might be the highest you can go. So
okay,
6,
so
7,
it's
8.
Relatively high, yeah.
Apparently, this explosion is compared to an explosion of Mount Tambora in Indonesia in 1815, which killed 100,000 people. So we're talking about massive.
Yeah.
Like, this spread everywhere. It was huge. So I think I saw one scale, because I looked at it, that like went to 6 or 7, but then there was one that was 8. So this is like one of the highest you can go.
That's wild.
Yeah. So Santorini.
Well, and in that time too. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
I keep interrupting you. I'm sorry. In that time too, I feel like it would be like
even worse.
You wouldn't have a warning. You had no way to track it.
Right. Like, unless, like they said, if you're on the island of Crete, you can see like maybe the ash coming up from that far away, but you're still going to be like, what's happening out there? And then the tsunami is going to come, and you're not going to really have, that's the warning you have, right? Is the explosion, not like what we have now, where we can kind of measure the, like whatever.
It's about to erupt, evacuate. It's like,
I also was seeing in the video that it was like, they were starting to evacuate, apparently, which is like sad, because they like saw like belongings like brought outside the doors and stuff. So like the only warning you have is like it erupts. Yeah. You know what I mean? Because the people that would have been trying to escape were like on the outside of the island. So like Santorini, so the volcano is in the middle. It's like a circular middle. And then we have an island that like goes around it. And there's a town there called Akrotiri. And this is the place where they started to uncover. They uncovered it under like 30 feet of ash. They started finding like walls. And it's apparently was also like super advanced, this town. It had multi-story buildings, and it also had a sewage system. They had toilets in the houses.
Oh my gosh.
Like that, yeah. They didn't have that until way later. It was like this big slit that went down, and it took it outside, put it in the pipe system, like, and the water took it away. So the water system that they had took the waste away as well. So this and the Minoan civilization like had these things in common.
How far away are they?
Like 100 miles. So not far. Not far at all. Like by ocean.
How did we go from that to dumping pots out in the middle of the road?
Right. Because they were destroyed. And it took 1,000 more years for the Romans and Greeks to come up with this stuff. It's almost like we went back in time too, like in the 1700s and things. I feel like we like went back. You know what I mean? Because like in Rome and in Greece and stuff, they had systems to take out the waste, and then we were just like dumping it.
Just dump it.
Chamber pots, just taking it outside. I know, that's what I'm like. I'm like, how did we go back?
Why did we go? Why did we go back?
Right, exactly. Why did we go back to stuff?
Was it just because it's more efficient to build this way? You don't have to take as long to build the water and the sewer and.
Well, it's probably like, I mean, I just don't know how they did it because it's pretty complex. But then, like, how did it not get passed down? Like I said,
don't know.
Destroyed. Okay, so
like, there's not one survivor of it though. Like, not a single person was like out, on a hike or something. I don't know.
I mean, it's an island, and I think that they said when the people of Akrotiri, if they had gotten to boats and started sailing, they were going to Crete because they would have been like their like neighbor, and then that just also got hit. So it's like,
oh, okay.
Even if you're trying to escape during the time, you're going on a boat, and there's tsunamis happening because of the volcanic eruption. So it's like there probably were survivors. I don't know where they would have gone, but like very unlikely that there were a lot of survivors.
Yeah.
There could have been survivors maybe on the outside island that just stayed there or whatever. I don't know if they all got covered in ash or whatever, but a lot of the towns were completely, like all of Crete was like wiped out from this.
Yeah.
So it's pretty crazy. So it's covered and buried under tons of ash, and pumice is the word, I guess, like the volcanic rock.
Mm-hmm.
And in the video you can see, like, he explains like when a volcano erupts, it deposits. And then years later, it erupts and it deposits. So you can see like the actual layers of ash and pumice, like on the island. And there's one on top of this big white ash, like the top layer. And it's like, I think he said in places it's like from 30 feet to like 80 feet high. And that's from the eruption of Santorini. So it's like the top layer. And there's like buildings buried underneath of it. So you can like see the different layers of this volcano. Because at the time he's like, I think there was a civilization actually living on the middle island.
Mm-hmm.
But they didn't know it was like a living volcano that was about to erupt. So it completely just
wiped them out.
As well as Akrotiri. And then it caused the tsunamis that destroyed Crete.
Yeah.
So
interesting.
Crazy stuff.
But Atlantis doesn't have a volcano on it.
No, but that's why they're saying it could have been the Minoan civilization, which was killed from the volcanic eruption, but it was by the tsunami. So it was buried in water, essentially.
Okay.
So that's like where it comes from. It's like, if it was completely swallowed in water, it would have had to have some sort of earthquake or tsunami or something to cause it to be destroyed. Yeah.
And the place you're talking about, it has like a crater where the volcano was?
Yeah. Yeah, like when a volcano dies, apparently it like forms this big crater like thing, and then it
just crumbles.
It explodes, and then it's like this big crater, and over time it like fills with water. Volcanoes are interesting because they're like on like shifting plates, I guess. So they die, and then over time they build back up because of the movement. So I guess like it forms this crater, but then it like builds itself back up. I might be wrong. I don't know a lot about volcanoes.
I'm just confused as to how the crater happened.
Yeah. It's like,
because you have your volcano, and then a volcano erupts. That volcano is still standing, Yeah.
I'm looking up.
Because like I feel like I feel like it would have to like be like the whole thing just explodes, for there to be a crater there.
So it's essentially they collapse when they have the volcanic eruption. So when the underlying magma chamber, it says, this is just from Google. It says, quote, Google, eruptions when the underlying magma chamber is partially emptied and the ground above it subsides into it. So like the land from the volcano after it erupts like sinks into the like magma chamber underneath. So then it probably like pushes the land back up when it fills, right? I don't know a lot about volcanoes.
This is all very sciencey. I'm confused.
If you're what do they call them? A volcanologist?
If you're a volcano expert,
break it down for us.
Send us a video. I need to see it.
I also don't know, but this is what they told me it formed. So that's all I've got for you.
That's okay. That's okay.
I can't.
I was just confused. I was like, how does it do? But how did? So you got your top of your volcano.
Right.
It erupts.
Right.
The top crumbles down into
the magma chamber.
Okay. And then there's
slowly the plates.
I'm thinking of it. Here's how I'm thinking of it, everybody. I'm thinking of it as acid reflux. Okay.
Okay.
Right. All right.
Mm-hmm.
So it explodes. The reflux is gone. The top of it crumbles.
Subsides. Yeah.
So there's nothing there. And then over time, the plates are shifting, is what you're saying, and pushing the stuff that fell down into it back up.
Yeah. I don't know, but that's how I kind of understood it.
But then, but so will it erupt again?
Yes, probably.
Even though it's a crater?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Where does the lava come from?
Well, it's underneath. I don't know. I'm also very confused. So I need to watch a video apparently on
How do we
volcanoes.
not have lava just spewing out of craters then?
I don't know. Well, maybe it has like different openings because it's like a mountain, right? Like they're like, I don't know.
I have no idea.
I don't know.
This is all very confusing. Please, if you know anything about this, I need a visual.
Right. I'm not a scientist. This is where I was like, I don't know. This is just what they told me. We'll have to do like a whole episode on volcanoes apparently.
Apparently we're going to have to.
Because I don't understand it either. I clearly do not understand it. But like it takes a long time for them to be, build up to erupt again, I think. Like a lot of time.
Okay.
I mean, that's why volcanoes just aren't like erupting all the time. I guess they have like periods of time they have to just sit there and then burst again or whatever. I don't know. But I'm sure not all volcanoes collapse, I don't think. I think it's just depends how big the explosion is, maybe.
I feel like if it collapses, it's done for. You're done.
All right. That's what you can think, but apparently not.
I feel like it shouldn't be allowed to erupt again.
They said it can erupt again. In the video that I was watching, they said it could erupt again.
I believe you, but I feel like that should be against the rules.
Right. It's against the laws of nature.
You can't just, this isn't a telenovela. You can't come back to life after you've died, okay?
You would think. But it's not the case. Volcanoes erupt like several times in their lifetime.
Yeah, but like once it collapses though.
Yeah, you're right.
Because
like a star.
like you see a volcano erupt. You see a volcano erupt and it's like, but the volcano is clearly still there after it.
Right. That's what I'm saying. I don't know.
So I feel like if it crumbles in, if it implodes, you're done.
Maybe it depends. My theory is maybe it depends on the size of the eruption, and then maybe ones that die like this or whatever it is, it takes like thousands and thousands of years for it to like be able to erupt again. Maybe. I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. That's just guys, I don't know. That's my guess.
Okay, and now is this just in my brain or like was this a dream I had, or do you remember like a volcano like appearing one day, or maybe it was erupting? I don't know. I feel like when I was in high school,
it just comes up out of the ocean.
Yeah,
they do. I mean, like not like just like vroom, like out of nowhere, but like they do like pop up out of the ocean.
Okay. So
I don't know which one you're talking about.
I felt like I saw a video. Someone was they were on a bridge and they were videoing the ocean. They were like, "What's happening up there?" And then it was just like slowly rising up. And it was like a volcano.
Well, I don't know if they go that fast.
I don't know.
We're going to have to look this up. Shall we pause?
I feel like I remember.
Should we pause and look this up? So we were looking this up a little bit about this island that popped up outside of Japan.
Yeah, so I was wrong. The volcano erupted underwater. The volcano was underwater. It erupted, and then there was an island.
Island.
You could not pay me enough money in the world to live on that island. I mean,
no.
That is. But it created like a landmass. A landmass just formed.
So if I remember from my basic knowledge of volcanoes, and I could be totally wrong, it's like they start at the ocean floor, right? And then they just like from that it has to be, right? Because the plates break.
If it was underwater, then it would like But it erupted while it was underwater.
Yeah, isn't that crazy?
That's wild.
All right,
and maybe that's how all of our land got here.
Yeah, all from a volcano. All
volcanoes.
We're all Atlantis.
We're all Atlantis.
We all came from nowhere, and we'll all go nowhere. No, just kidding.
Wow. That's dark.
Okay, so we have some. So that was the history. That was kind of Santorini and Crete and the Minoan civilization. Kind of like the biggest, like, possible Atlantis, like, where the myth came from. Like, Plato used these civilizations that he had heard about, kind of described them, saying they're utopian, they're wonderful, they're advanced beyond us, using them as an example of pride. And then that's how it got, handed down. However, most people think it's a myth. However, there are a lot of people who have other theories and things about it. Some of these are crazy.
Let's get into these.
Okay, so Charles Berlitz proposed that Atlantis was engulfed by the Bermuda Triangle. I don't know how it would have. I mean, I guess that's Atlantic Ocean, right?
Is it just me, or did you feel like the the Bermuda Triangle was going to be a bigger problem?
Yes, always. I was like, what if I get into the Bermuda Triangle?
Like, I thought, oh, if I'm flying and it's
Yeah.
like we go over the Bermuda Triangle, we're done for.
We're dead. Yeah. Well, what if like there were more like Bermuda Triangle instances, and like we have lost a lot of civilizations or something to these types of things?
Maybe.
That's
The Bermuda Triangle is just a black hole, but on Earth.
right. The Bermuda Triangle is so fascinating.
Maybe we should do an episode on the Bermuda Triangle.
We probably will. We probably will. Okay, and there was another theory by Charles Hapgood was his name that thought that Antarctica was once Atlantis. It had once been a warmer continent that had shifted south before, like I said, before we had understood like all about like plate tectonics and things. Like he thought that it was a warmer a warmer climate, and it had shifted south. And when the ice happened, that's when the civilization got wiped out because they couldn't live in the ice, in the cold.
Huh.
Atlantis, Antarctica.
I don't buy it.
I also don't buy it.
Because penguins.
Because penguins, they're Atlanteans.
We're,
The penguins that we come from, everyone.
But like, where would the penguins have come from?
Right.
Where would the polar bears have come from?
They adapted, but the people.
But the people, we
Ow.
just couldn't adapt.
Right. We couldn't. We lost
I don't buy it.
Oh, I don't buy it either. These are the like crazy ones. Now this guy also, I believe it was in 1882, named Ignatius L. Donnelly. Fun name.
Ooh. Ignatius. Wasn't Ignatius like either like
Type of rock.
Wasn't he like a ruler or
It
a
does sound like a Greek.
philosopher or
I'm sure there was an Ignatius.
there was an Ignatius.
Like a Roman emperor named Ignatius. That's what I was like. That's
but this
fun
is
name.
not that person.
No, this is an author. I think he lived in 1882. He wrote this book called Atlantis, the Antediluvian World.
I'm sorry. That's a big word for
It's a
Elmo.
big
What?
word. It's a big word for Hannah. The Antediluvian World.
What is an antediluvian world?
It's like a time period, I think.
Okay.
Which would have been like when this.
When Atlantis was. Okay.
He proposed that the people of Atlantis were the common ancestor of all ancient peoples. So like all the peoples that lived in the ancient times.
So we're all Atlantonian.
We're all Atlanteans. Yeah.
That word. Mm-hmm.
Yes. And so a podcast, I didn't listen to it. I read an article about this podcast, but it was a British broadcasting company.
BBC.
Yes, BBC.
Mm-hmm.
Podcast called You're Dead to Me on Radio 4. And then I didn't listen to the podcast, so I have no idea what it's like.
Mm-hmm.
But I was reading an article where they said, here are some of the theories they talk about in this podcast. They spoke about a woman named Madame Blavatsky. Yes, who wrote a book called The Secret Doctrine that claims that people of Atlantis, the people of Atlantis were the first race to look like human beings. So, yes.
So like,
as we look today.
Yeah. So like, was she saying like evolution wise? Or...
Maybe.
Okay.
Yeah, like, this is like a very like, this is what she believed. So I didn't like go into research. I'd like to do more research about them, but like I was already like so into it that I was like, but I guess like, yeah, as far as like evolution goes or whatever, I guess she thought that this culture was the first to look human, like as we know ourselves today. That's what we first looked like.
Okay.
We're the Atlanteans, okay? And she also believed that they had superpowers.
So demigods.
Right. So they could like fly and do other things according to her. The secret doctrine. So maybe if we make a religion, we should base it off of this.
Yeah.
I am descended from Atlantis.
Maybe.
I mean,
are we making a religion though?
No.
Okay.
For all the listeners out there, just so you know, I'm not making a religion.
That was a joke.
Usually how cults start. Just saying.
Let's start a cult. That's like the pin.
Yes, so you got Wesley.
That I got Wes. I got Wes the Kool-Aid Man. Like a pin, Pin. And I got him. It was the Kool-Aid Man, and it said, "Let's start a cult."
Oh my gosh. You know, maybe we should do it with like an Atlantis thing, and this says, "Let's start a cult."
Let's start a cult.
They're actually, well, hold on, I'll get to that.
Okay.
It's not a cult, but you know, it's a following. There was also, I read this by a website called Dazed Digital, and also the podcast You're Dead to Me mentioned. Apparently, Nazis used Atlantis as, yes, I know. We did not know Nazis were coming into this.
Hold up. When was Atlantis a thing?
Like 13,000 years ago, supposedly.
Okay. When did the Nazis happen?
1930. I always get the dates of the wars mixed up. 1930s? 20s?
Okay.
30, what World War?
Two?
I get the dates confused. Anyway, yeah.
Okay. All right. Okay, continue.
Okay, continue. This guy named Dietrich Eckart, who was a mentor of Adolf Hitler, believed that the Atlanteans were a pure race, so that the Aryan people descended from the Atlanteans. So he had this like cult history surrounding
so
them.
like that's how it was
the
influenced.
Pure race. Yeah.
Okay, I was confused. I was like,
You're like, hold on, where are we going with this?
hold on.
Isn't that crazy that like, he used it?
Imagine being the mentor of Adolf Hitler.
Well, I mean, why do you think Adolf Hitler became what he did?
Listen, Hitler wrote a... We're going to do a Hitler one. I'm not going to give it away. But Hitler wrote a book laying out exactly what he was going to do in the Holocaust. And everybody laughed at him. And he did it. Mm-hmm. So, just saying.
Yeah. You got to watch out for the...
Just saying.
You got to watch out for the people that, like... That literally proposed...
The crazies?
Yeah, the crazies.
Watch out for the crazies, everybody.
Yes. Dietrich Eckart and Hitler. Watch out for them.
So basically, Eckart
yeah.
was the Atlantis people were the pure people, and so then Hitler was like, blonde hair, blue eyes. That's the pure people. Did he believe blonde hair, blue eyed people were the descendants of the Atlanteans?
I don't know, but I highly doubt it. Like that's.
Like, is that where that came from? I wonder.
Probably. Well, whatever it was, they thought they were like a pure race.
Yeah.
I don't know if what they believed that these people looked like, or if they were like, we're just descended from them.
Yeah.
So that was an interesting one. I was like, I don't understand. And then a third guy they talked about, his name was, I don't know how to say his last name, Edgar Cayce or Casey, it's spelled weird, was apparently a psychic who released a book in the 1960s that said he had these visions and trances and things that allowed him to see into people's past lives. Mm. And these especially surrounded around Atlantis. And so he could see that we had past lives in Atlantis. We like people had past lives. People who are living on the earth now. Yes.
In Atlantis.
And Atlantis was also powered by crystals. This is Edgar's theory, guys. Did you like that one, Felina?
Sorry. If crystals are your thing, I'm not making fun of you. I'm just a whole civilization
ran on the power
of crystals. Yep. Okay.
Yep. And the Atlantis following is not dead today.
Okay.
There's a TikTok trend of online spiritualists who have a belief that they're indeed they're descended from the people of Atlantis.
Okay.
And there's a trend called witch talk and woke talk. And I also saw there's Atlantis, like the trend Atlantis, and then there's something called Arcturian, star seeds, like all this stuff is like surrounding Atlantis. But apparently there's this one girl, her name is like Grace McGrade, and this is like me reading an article about her. So like I didn't like get to go to her like direct thing, but Days Digital said that she apparently believes that when we were in Atlantis, it was the last time that we were enlightened or knew what was going on. And we are just starting to wake up now. So the last time we were like awake was like when we were in Atlantis. And so that like everyone that lives now probably was there when Atlantis happened. Do you like that one?
Okay, Grace. Okay. What? Okay, so she's saying that we're getting ready to be enlightened again,
right? And
we're gonna have like a second Atlantis.
Yeah, because they were so technologically advanced and all this stuff, and now we're, we felt like we've gone back a little bit. You know what I mean? Like we've kind of
like how we were talking about how why would we go away from plumbing,
right?
Yeah,
why were we so intelligent civilization that was so yeah. And there was this other girl I was watching. Let me tell you, I started looking at some of this stuff and I was like, I'm sorry, what? But there was this girl, I don't know, her name was like Sanella Estrella or something. But Sanella Estrella on TikTok.
It reminds me of Cruella DeVille.
That apparently, like, if you experience these certain things, it was like a video of hers I watched. Like, if you experience these certain things, like, if you have a fascination with, like, the ocean, like dolphins and whales, but you also kind of have, like, you're kind of scared of the ocean and you're kind of scared of drowning. If you have deja vu, if you're attracted to the healing arts, like Reiki and all that stuff, then you're probably descended from Atlantis. And there's also another, like, city called Lemuria. I found this other girl that was like, why do we always talk about Atlantis but never Lemuria? She's like, it's so much cooler than Atlantis. And she, like, went on and went on and went on. And then she was like, and they live under Mount Shasta in America now, or something, like the people. Yeah. So,
okay.
if you like dolphins
but you're scared of drowning, right, congratulations.
And you have deja vu.
You're from Atlantis.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
she's saying that the civilization lives under a mountain.
Yeah, I don't know what that wasn't Atlantis. It was Lemuria.
You know what it is? They live under the mountain and they have all these cave systems, and then they go into the national parks and they're snatching people. We figured it out, guys. We solved the mystery.
I'm confused because I don't know if all the, like, things that say you're star seeds or whatever, which you're from, like, a star, they're, like, different types. I don't know if they, like, say this is all linked to Atlantis. I just started, like, getting into, like, I just looked, like, I kind of glanced at them.
You got into the crazies.
I did. I specifically was, like, on my computer and searched this because this is nothing that would ever, like, just pop up on its own.
Mm-hmm.
But, like, that was the one video I saw where she was like, if you feel this way and this way, you're probably from Atlantis, descended from Atlantis. And I was like, wow, okay.
Alrighty.
I do have a fear of the ocean, but I'm not really fascinated by it because I think it's terrifying.
I'm scared of the ocean because we know more about space than we do the ocean. That's why I'm scared of the ocean.
Right.
I'm like, what? It's on our Earth.
Oh, and also she said, like, crystals too. Like, if you liked crystals and things, you're from Atlantis because it was powered by crystals.
Right. That's right. Mm-hmm. Is that a common belief that it was powered by crystals?
I don't know. That was just like the Edgar. Was that the Edgar guy?
Okay.
But it was funny because I started reading some of the comments and they were like, because she talks about, like, deja vu and, like, if you have heat and light sensitivity and, like, all this stuff, and they're like, someone was like, these are, like, common things to have. Like, this isn't unique to anyone.
Yeah.
Really. But yeah, so that's Atlantis.
Wow. Okay, so I got to be honest with you, Hannah. And you know this. When we first started, when you were like, I could do an episode on Atlantis, I was like, oh, like the place? And you were like, yeah, but it's like a myth. And I was like, but
it's real.
It's real. Like, that's how, I don't know. That's how it was described to me. It was like, it was a real place that sank, but we just don't know where it sank at.
Right. I think before, there are a lot of people who were just like, it was a real place and it sunk. But scholars have been like, there's no evidence that shows, like, an underwater, like, you know, like a complete city that was destroyed and it's, like, underwater now. But there are these places on land that are completely destroyed, you know, and that say, well, there are probably like land masses that sink
all the time,
like, especially way back that we don't know about because, like, as you've seen, in that volcano video, I mean, that one, I mean, pieces of land can be blown off all the time. Yeah. So there could definitely probably be, like, people dead at the bottom of the sea.
Well, like, it totally could have been, like, here's Atlantis. Yeah. There is a volcano under it. It erupted on top of Atlantis and it sunk the whole city. Yeah. And then the volcano keeps erupting. Yeah. So there wouldn't be any evidence of it because a volcano is literally erupting on it.
And when you say, like, oh, Atlantis was, I mean, that's what I always heard too. Like, oh, Atlantis is real. It just, like, isn't, like, you know.
We just can't find it.
But I think that most scholars think that it was a myth. And we now are like, but there are these cities that could have been Atlantis. So, like, you know, Plato based it off of. Mm-hmm. But there's a lot of research out there. So, and there's always new information. So, I don't know. I also was like, I have heard before that it's real, and I've also heard that it's a myth. So, if you're taking, like, Atlantis that maybe he based it off of, real. If you're thinking about Atlantis, like a city that's underwater, like a whole civilization that's sunk underwater, probably a myth. But
okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Wow.
So have you learned something today?
Yeah, I learned that people think that Atlantis was run on crystals.
Who's to say?
And that we're all descendants of Atlantis.
I want to go back to when we had superpowers. If you know anything about Atlantis or volcanoes, because we are...
Because we're confused.
You can email us at...
lattespodcast@gmail.com. Or you can reach us on Instagram and Facebook. Instagram is Lattes on My Mind, all lowercase, all one word. And then Facebook is just Lattes on My Mind.
Yeah, don't be scared to even leave us comments like, hey, guys, what?
Yeah.
Did you know this? Or like,
yeah, you guys can comment on the actual Spotify episode if you wanted to. If you're like, that's too much work, I'm right here. Let me just...
Right. Yeah.
We can see it. So.
But yeah, in the meantime...
But good news, Hannah, that we're about to be enlightened.
Yes!
So we're going to get our superpowers.
Everyone, if you're feeling down, if you're feeling discouraged, if you think things aren't looking up...
We're getting superpowers, baby.
And we're being enlightened soon.
We're going to get our superpowers back. Woohoo! Crystals.